if you don't perceive enough value in what I'm presenting to you, you're not giving me your money. Plain and simple, right? So if we believe that what we sell is valuable to somebody, that's the first step in overcoming the money mindset issues around sales. A lot of us will look at the sale as something we do to somebody instead of for them. And there's a difference there.
Welcome to the Profit Answer Man podcast, where business owners learn to scale their profits and cash flow and work less doing it. You built your business to fulfill your dreams and serve your mission. You're the backbone of America, creating the jobs and opportunities that keep our economy moving. And for that, you deserve to be well rewarded. We're Profit First certified. It's the first baby step in a journey we take our clients on, building cash-rich, margin-strong businesses that don't suck the life out of you. Check out the first 13 episodes of the podcast. It's Mike Michalowicz and my review of each chapter of the Profit First book. Around here, we speak cash flow, profit, and practical execution. No accounting jargon, no fluff. Most accountants, they might help you save on taxes, but they'll crush your cash flow and make you look unprofitable. That's not just a poor decision, it's a liability. We help you focus on what you love. And when we partner together, we become a profit center for your business. If we don't deliver a massive ROI on your investment in us, fire us. Want to see how it all works? Watch the video version on YouTube or head over to ProfitComesFirst.com to grab your free copy of the Profit Blueprint book and start making profit a habit. You built this business to serve your mission and your freedom. Let's make sure it pays you back big. Today, we're going to chat about how to work less and make more, because that's the reason you started your business. So why not have it? It's the reason we're here, to help you achieve that. The Profit Blueprint book shows you a path to it, and it's free on the website. We're going to be doing a ton of free videos as well, showing you how. Stay tuned to our YouTube channel for that. We know how to build the equation for your business, so we know where to put the least amount of effort for the biggest results. And we're going to cover that in today's episode, along with a lot more. Listen in as James and I chat. We say the same things in different ways and provide many of the same services in different formats. James is the CEO, founder of Business Accelerator Institute and Perseverance Squared, where he is a business consultant with a strong background in law. He launched his first business in 1994 and rapidly expanded to multiple top-performing locations, reaching over $8 million in annual revenues. In 2014, he transitioned to coaching and guiding over 350 business owners to significant growth through strategic management and marketing. Let's meet James and see how he does it. Welcome to the Profit Answer Man, James Brown. It's great to have you join us today.
Thank you so much, Rocky. Thanks for inviting me today.
I'm excited for the conversation. Can you share a little bit about yourself and your business?
Absolutely. So I started my business. I had an unorthodox path to the business. I got married when I was 19, was actually kicked out of the house because I was told I will never be able to achieve my goals. And so I got a job at General Motors working on the assembly line, building cars. And I got my undergraduate degree in business and then went on to law school. And when I graduated law school, it just so happened that the plant that I worked at General Motors was closing. And so I had a 5-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 1-year-old at the time. And I sent out 200 plus resumes and got zero response. You know, in hindsight, I wouldn't have hired me either, but it forced me to start my own law firm. And so I did that. And from the very beginning, all of these things that I heard from other lawyers on how you have to sacrifice and what you have to do to own a successful law firm, I was like, why is that the norm? Why can't we do it differently? And my biggest factor was my kids, right? 5 years, 2 years, 1 year old. I didn't want to miss a thing. with them. So I went into this business and designed it so that I did not miss any of their activities. And I ended up growing that business to $8 million a year. And we had offices in St. Louis, Detroit, Kansas City, and Miami. And the biggest benefit of it was I was able to buy my time back. I didn't have to physically be there 70, 80-hour weeks. I would go to all of their school events and go to my son made a hockey team when he was 12 and traveled to Europe and played for 3 weeks. And I just dropped everything and went. I did a lot of volunteer work with the Red Cross, and we would go on deployments at the last minute and be gone for 35, 40 days at a time, and my business doesn't miss a beat. And so I really enjoyed building the business. The law degree was just my vehicle to get there. And so my kids weren't interested in law school. And so I decided that I don't want to actively practice law past the age of 50. So I sold the firm when I was 49 in 2014, and I went into consulting. And I worked for another company for several years. And then in 2023, in October, I launched Perseverance Squared, which is a one-on-one coaching business where I work with owners of small businesses and help them set their business up the right way and scale it in a profitable way. And then recently, we have launched Business Accelerator Institute. And that's where we have designed 50 plus courses for businesses of all sizes to address different parts of the business and give them that Harvard Business School type education. But it's really the school of hard knocks that I learned going through building these businesses. And it's a way for you to get the education you need without paying Harvard prices. So that's kind of my story to get where I'm at. And in the process, I've worked with over 450 business owners to help them scale their businesses.
Nice. And Profit First was part of this. So
yes,
what was your experience with Profit First? How did you come to find it and use it?
Yeah, so I ran across it probably 10 years into running the law firm. And I was running the law firm like most people would that I found at the time, where it's business minus expenses, and hopefully there was some profit left. And the problem with that approach is if there's money there, you tend to spend it, right? And then once you spend it, then it's like there's no profit. Okay, well, hopefully next month. All right. Well, when I read the Profit First concepts, I was like, that makes a lot of sense. If I can run the business on $100,000 a month, I can run it on $95,000 a month, right? So I started with setting aside $5,000 a month, and then forcing myself to run the business on the rest. So I set up a tax account, I set up a profit account, and then I set up a distribution type account. So I had 3 Profit First accounts at the beginning, and I just started with that 5%. And then that eventually grew and grew and grew to where when I got my overall profit margin to around 35 to 40%, the majority was going into those accounts. And it just made it much easier to run the business knowing that profit is there, and it forces you to make decisions instead of just spending what money's there.
It's funny how we spend money that's there.
Oh, yeah.
Not hard to do.
Yeah.
I
No,
see
it's
the
not.
word, and it's hilarious to me. I'm reinvesting in my business. And my question is always, when is the reinvestment going to pay off? And at what rate of return? And when will you get your money back? And nobody ever has an answer to that question, unfortunately.
No, most people don't. I think it's an excuse that people tell themselves.
Yes.
When they're having to put money back in the business to keep from losing their shirt. It's like, I'm reinvesting.
But I think I don't know why they feel compelled to do it. Part of it, I think, is growth. Like, oh, we have to grow. Oh, I have to reinvest to grow. Oh, I got to spend money to make money. And just like you started with your conversation, I think those are all lies. You don't have to do these things. There are ways to do things if you are far more creative and you work on your business instead of in your business, then you have the ability to do that.
Yeah. And I think you used a term earlier when you say reinvest in the business and expect a return on investment, right?
Mhm.
Otherwise, it's just an expense.
Correct.
But if I invest, like for example, if I want to start a new marketing initiative, I expect a 9 to 11x return on that. And so I'm going to do everything I can on the marketing side to tilt the odds in my favor to give me that kind of return on investment. To me, that would be an investment back in my business. But if I'm just throwing money at an expense and I haven't gone through that process to figure out how to get the return on investment, we're not reinvesting in our business.
So you said if I invest in marketing, I want a 9 to 11 times return.
Mm-hmm.
So for a business owner that only has a 10% profit margin, if I invest a dollar, I get $10 back. But because I get $10 in revenue with a 10% profit margin, I only actually have a dollar in profit, which is what I put in, which means I'm not making any money. I'm working harder and I'm not getting a return. And I know your profit margins were much bigger, so it worked. But for the average business owner, a lot of them have 10% profit margins. And if they're going to spend on marketing, they better make sure that the return on investment is far greater than that. When I hear marketing people talk, they're okay with 2 to 3 to 1. And I'm like, you're losing money at that rate
You're
because you
losing
haven't
money.
done the numbers, and it gets a little scary. And I think this is where people struggle. Plus, they're told they're going to get the return. Did you measure? Did you actually see if you got the return or didn't get the return? Because I think that's another big part of it.
I do too. And I think what you said there, though, requires a little bit more digging in, right? If somebody comes to me and they show me their profit and loss statement for all of last year and their income, their net profit margin is 10%. I want to know what's making up that other 90%. Most of the time, there's marketing dollars in there,
That is
right?
true.
So that's the marketing dollars that I'm looking at. When I look at a P&L, and if somebody spent $200,000 last year on marketing, I'm looking for their income to be between 1.8 to 2.2 million dollars.
If not
If
more.
it's not, right, then I want to find out where that breakdown is in return on investment. And keep in mind that that can be bad marketing.
Yes.
But if we remember what marketing's job is to bring the right person in the right frame of mind with the right problem and the right timing to your doorstep. That's it. So if marketing's done that, marketing has done its job. Now we have to set up a sales conversation. We have to get them to show up to the sales conversation. We have to sell them and close the sale. All of those things go into the ROI. And what I find most businesses is they're struggling on those internal components, and we got leads coming in, but we're not maximizing those leads. That's where, I'll give you an example. I had a business owner who was $12 million a year is what he was currently on a run rate. Run rate means what the monthly income times 12 equals. So in his case, he was doing $1 million a month. So that's a $12 million run rate. But he was only closing 7% of his sales opportunities.
Not very good. I can tell you that.
And he came to me and said, I want to talk about marketing. I said, I refuse to talk to you about marketing. Let's talk about how to improve your sales. And so we did that. And within about 6 months, he improved it to 14%, right? Just that one change, his revenue went from a $12 million run rate to a $23 million run rate. Guess what? Now his ROI on his marketing dollars all of a sudden shot up from that 3 to 4 to 8 to 9 times ROI, right? So that's what I look for. And by doing that, now guess what you're going to do? You're going to increase your net margins.
Yes.
You're going to lower your cost of acquisition, all the benefits of making sure that we're maximizing the leads that we do have coming in. So when we reinvest in the business, I think it's important that, like when I started an office in Detroit, I knew it was going to take about $50,000 to get that office up and running and break even. So we started profit first by setting money aside into a sinking fund so that we had $50,000 available to go start Detroit. And then my goal was within 6 months that business was breaking even and making a profit for the owner. And so to me, that would be a classic example of investing in the business and expecting that return within a set amount of time.
And I concur with you. And what you taught, when we look at businesses, we look at three different drivers: driving revenue, which is marketing and sales; driving profit, which is the things that we'll talk about, which is what it costs you to deliver your products, basically.
Yes.
And then the last one is driving cash flow. So just because you sell something doesn't mean you got paid, right? And
Right.
so we also need to make sure you're driving cash flow. And if you're in debt or so forth, all of those things within those are leverage points. And you talked about one of the leverage points. I can tell you, if I looked at a client just like you did, and I'm like, 7% conversion, that's horrible. It's a sales problem, not a marketing problem. And like you said, you go from 7 to 14 and you double sales. It's an investment in learning what's the problem with sales. Do we have a bad salesperson? Do we not have good training? Is something else not right? Figuring that out and changing it dramatically shifts things. And so that is when you put the whole math of the business together, it becomes real easy when you're someone like yourself or myself who goes, oh, that's the lever point that needs work. And so that's basically what we do as well. So when you look at businesses, you talk about 7 parts of a business. So why don't we what are the 7 parts of the business?
Absolutely. It's one of those aha moments I had in my business. When I first started it, I was like, "Oh, I'm just gonna market and grow, and then I'm gonna figure all this out, and I don't know who to hire and all." And it was all blended together, right? And then I figured out that really the business has different parts. The 7 parts, and I'm going to keep this very simple, is marketing, sales, your factory, which is what is it that you have to do to deliver what you sold? Okay. I'm a lawyer. So it's drafting legal documents, it's whatever, the systems and the procedures in place to draft that. That's my factory. Okay. The next part is physical plant. I'm sorry, the next part after factory is people. Who's going to run the factory? Who's going to do the work? Then it's physical plant, because where are we going to house the people? And nowadays, that physical plant doesn't necessarily have to be brick and mortar. It could be all virtual. It could be a hybrid. Then you have money and metrics as part number 6. So not only your financials, but your KPIs that you're using to make decisions in your business. And then the final part of the business is you, the business owner. And that's one of the biggest struggles I see is the mindset issues that the owners will have and getting stuck and not being able to move to the next level because of some limiting beliefs or some terror barriers they have from earlier in their life, or something they experience working for somebody else. And they have this limiting belief that, oh, I can't do that. This is how it's supposed to be done. And so you get locked into that and it's hard to move past it. So those are the 7 parts: marketing, sales, factory, people, physical plant, money and metrics, and you, the business owner.
When we onboard a new client, we start with the you part. And we want to understand their beliefs, especially their beliefs around money. Because whatever those beliefs around money are, that a lot of times started at a young age, they're going to permeate through the business. and the way that they do business. And if I can understand their money beliefs, and then we look at them as a whole person, because whatever's going on at home is coming into work. And so, if they're getting divorced, if they're not in the best of health, if they've got other types of things going on in their personal life, we realize it's going to affect the business life. And so we want to look at them as a person first, because at the end of the day, that may drive the problems. Then we can look at all these other things because the others are easily fixable. Fixing the person's difficult.
Yeah. And, there's a couple things around that I see often as well. And it is money mindset issues. Number one, we want to really kind of accept the premise that the sale of anything is just an exchange of value, right? Just an exchange of value. If you don't perceive enough value in what I'm presenting to you, you're not giving me your money, plain and simple, right? So if we believe that what we sell is valuable to somebody, that's the first step in overcoming the money mindset issues around sales, right? A lot of us will look at the sale as something we do to somebody instead of for them. And there's a difference there.
Mm-hmm.
I had money mindset issues when I came from working at General Motors making $18 an hour to where I'm billing $450 an hour. And I was like, okay, yeah, I can help you with this problem. My fee is only $450 an hour, because I struggled to say it because I had a blue collar background. And that's because I was looking at sales as something I was doing to them. But then I started thinking about the value that I bring to them and this problem I can solve for them that they can't solve on their own. And that is priceless. And holy crap, I'm only charging you $450 an hour, right? So when you start to look at it that way and the value that your business brings, it will start to help you overcome those money mindset issues.
It will. And that's why we start there. Because
Yeah.
if you're afraid to charge, we're going to have a problem.
Yep.
And it's one of the easiest things to notice when you know to go looking for it. I noticed when you talked about factory / the production of whatever it is that you build, you talked about systems and processes.
Yes.
And I find very rarely do businesses build systems and processes when they're small. And then they wonder why everyone is asking them and that they are the one that's stuck in the middle of everything because they haven't built the systems and processes. So they don't have to show everyone everything and answer every single question a million times.
Right, exactly. I think McDonald's is one of the greatest businesses to look at systems, right? And if anybody ever watched the movie The Founder, you kind of know what I'm talking about. They had a scene there where they're in the tennis court and they're mapping everything out. And they actually had their employees walking through this diagram and bumping into each other. And then they would erase it and redraw it, and they had that down. And so if you think about McDonald's, it's 16-year-old kids that are working there that no matter which McDonald's you go into anywhere, that cheeseburger is going to taste the same. And if that 16-year-old flakes out today, they have another 16-year-old they just plug right in. Why? Because they have systems that run the business and not people. People run the systems. And so that's when you don't have that, you've got people that are in charge of things and they're doing it their own way. And then let's say you have a key person. I had a key person. Her name was Christy, man. She could do everything. She was with me for like 10 years and everything was in her head, right? If Christy quit, guess what? I'm screwed, right? So we started looking at systems. What happens from the moment they hire us? What's next? And then what's next? And what's next? And we map that all the way out until the end of our life of the sale with that client. And then now let's plug in people. Let's group this stuff together where it makes sense. And this person now is responsible for this part. This person's responsible for this part. This person's responsible for this part. And then I'm going to cross train this person with this person so that if this one misses a day, this one automatically steps in, right? Now, everybody's very clear on who does what by when. And every time we sign a new client, it flowed through the office that way. Guess what? Me as the owner, I can step back. And I have confidence and the belief that if I'm there or if I'm not, that file, that client is going to flow through in the same manner.
What do you do when the people don't follow the system or don't do whatever by when?
Yes. So we have to hold them accountable. How do we build in accountability? We build in KPIs by position. I look at this position and I say, what are the 3 or 4 things that this position, take the person's name out of it, is responsible for in order for that position to be successful for my business? An example would be my intake person. She handled all the incoming calls for new appointments. Well, what if she just didn't answer the phone? What if she let it go to voicemail? Right? That's not acceptable to me. So one of her KPIs was 95% of calls had to be answered by the second ring. If they weren't, you're going to get one warning. And if it happens again, you're not doing that job anymore. Right? So we have KPIs in place to measure by on the most, what does that position have to do to be successful? And that's how we hold people accountable.
And I like that you said 3 or 4. It's not like you got to do 100 things. It's like, hey, these are the 3 or 4 most important things that you need to focus on. And you have a number, and you have to make sure of this, because I don't think most business owners, all of the numbers, when they add up, have to drive your profit and cash flow. Because if the numbers send people in a direction that doesn't, you will struggle. All your people can make their numbers, but you as the business owner don't get paid because you picked the wrong numbers or the wrong metrics to look at.
Correct.
And so you have to be
Correct.
very careful of what you do.
Yeah. Going back to my intake person, obviously it's important that she answer the phone. The second thing that's most important is she set that lead for an appointment. So that's another KPI. Set at least 85% of your calls to an appointment. She was with me for 16 years total, but she had a 90% appointment set rate. And then her third one was make sure they show up. Right? It doesn't do us any good if she sets everybody for an appointment and they don't come in. And so the KPI was at least 75% of your appointments show up for the appointment. And she was always around 83, 85%.
And I like this because I look at everything from a risk angle. Okay, you got to answer the phone on 2 rings. Hello, bye. Right? Because people will do that. So now it's hello, I need to get the appointment. And because they have to show up, the next KPI, you have to make sure it's a real appointment. I'm not just throwing appointments on the screen or doing things that are not reasonable and so forth. And so all of that is extremely important. So I get it. I like how you built it and made it work together. It's kind of funny because most attorneys aren't systems people.
No. And that's where they run into trouble. And I wasn't at the very beginning. And that's where we saw piles of files everywhere. Right. And everybody's stressed out and they don't know what to do. And they're just working on the hottest fire right now. Right. That's not a place anybody wants to come to work. So systems allowed you to have that in place where everybody goes home at the end of the day, their desk was clean. I used to actually judge performance by I would walk through the office periodically and just peer in and look at everybody's desk. And if there was stuff piled everywhere, I would go in and have a conversation with them. What's going on? Because if you're following the system, then this shouldn't be like this. Right?
How did you learn to be a systems person?
I think it's my ADHD brain. I didn't learn from anybody. I was just like, this is driving me freaking mad. right? When I go and I ask somebody, where's this file? I don't know. I put it in here and I'm not sure who gets it from there. Oh my goodness, right? That drives me crazy. So I have to have structure in my life, to where I can stay focused, and I need a way to do that for me. A lot of times my ADHD, when I get overwhelmed and I have too many things going on that's not structured, I just shut down and I do nothing, right? And I found that happening early on in the business. There was a one point in my business when we first started, it was just me and my wife, and we're doing like 2 clients a week. And I studied human buying process and what makes people take action, and I changed my marketing message. And the moment I changed my marketing message, the first week we signed 68 new clients.
What did you do?
I, instead of talking about me, I talked about their pain point and what's keeping them up at night. So instead of saying, hi, my name's James Brown, I did bankruptcy work.
Oh.
Okay. My name's James Brown. If you would like to stop foreclosure or stop a repossession, call me today. I have done blah, 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 blah. And it was all about me. Nobody cares about me. What's keeping them up at night is if I lose my home, I don't know where we would go. I'd have to pull my kids out of school. They'd have to leave their friends. My wife doesn't even know we're behind in house payments. And my neighbors, what would they think if I had to get a U-Haul truck and move suddenly? Right? So I ran an ad that said, are you about to lose your home and can't tell your family you're going to live on the street? And all of a sudden, the phone's ringing off the hook. And that's where all of a sudden now I realized all this work came in and it was just me and my wife. And it was like, oh, crap, right? So how are we going to get this work done in the most logical way that works with my ADHD brain? And then we started hiring people to plug into the systems.
I love how you do that because you're speaking my language, right? We build systems and we put people in to run the systems. And you've kind of touched on the marketing, because I think that's the other struggle businesses have is consistent, reliable revenue. And part of that is the messaging. And I think just like you mentioned, a lot of business owners talk about their product, how wonderful it is, and how this feature is so great, instead of focusing on what is the client's pain point and can you solve it? And when you spend all your time talking about them, that's when things change. And so,
and here's what I learned, Rocky, was that the human brain is obvious, amazing. And everybody kind of knows there's 2 sides to the brain. There's the emotional side and there's the logical side. And we as human beings make decisions with the emotional side of our brain. Most marketing out there targets the logical side of the brain. And so that's why people don't raise their hand and want to know more and reach out and do stuff, because we're appealing to the logical side of the brain. So that's a problem right to begin with. Talking about me is appealing to the logical side of the brain. The other thing that's kind of unique about the human brain is it's always looking, the logical side of the brain is always looking to solve problems that the body has, keeping us safe, justifying our decisions. That's where buyer's remorse lives. And so when we search for a solution to our problem and all of the options look the same, the brain doesn't know what to do. It all looks the same. So what does it do? It defaults to lowest price. That's bad for business, right? So how do I make my marketing message stand out over every other option that they have? And it's not copying what everybody else is doing. It's doing something completely different. When you do that, guess what happens? You bring value to that person, because all of a sudden you just thin the herd. And you stood out, and it's like, wow, I want to call this business and find out more about what they do. That brings value to them. And if you remember, we talked a few minutes ago about the sale is just an exchange of value. So I'm starting in my marketing message, bringing more value to them by thinning the herd. And so that by the time they get to sit down with my salesperson, they're already pre-sold. I would have to be stupid to do business with anybody else but you. I don't care how much you charge, right? That's what I want to get them to. I don't want them to default to the lowest price. So those are the things we changed in the business that really skyrocketed the revenue.
I like it. We've covered a lot of different parts. Is there anything else we should touch on that we didn't get a chance to?
Yeah, I think that the concept of running a successful, profitable business is simple. It really is. If you really look at the 7 parts and how they fit together, it's probably another hour-long call besides this one. But it's a simple concept, but nobody ever said it's going to be easy, right? I always look at it as new level, new devil. If I'm a $500,000 business owner, I'm going to run into certain struggles. If I'm a $10 million business owner, my struggles are just different, right? So it's never going to be easy, but the concept is simple. And if you look at it that way and you build a business and you think about, like, for example, if my business all of a sudden takes off and I go from doing 2 cases a week to 40, do I need to hire people? Okay. Well, how many and when? Well, how long does it take to do a case? Right? If it takes me an hour to prepare what I sell, then the average person could do 5 a day, let's say, and that's 25 hours a week. And then they got to make corrections. So now I knew that when my volume got above 25 sales a week, I needed to start recruiting another person. Right. And that's how those pieces of the business all fit together. So I would say, as a parting piece of advice is really simplify the way you look at the business and how they all play together. And then I think the biggest thing to maintain profitability is learn how to manage your business by data and not emotions. We make expensive mistakes when we make decisions based on emotion.
And I concur. And what you're just talking about is simple, basic math across the entire business, all the way from generating revenue to delivering your services to, at the end, paying yourself and being rewarded with profit and covering taxes. And when you understand how it all fits together, it becomes really easy to see where the problem is. And then once we know where the problem is, finding a solution is not difficult. And as you said, though, and I think a lot of people, business owners, when I get to $1 million, it'll be solved. And then they get to 1 million and it's not solved. And when I get to 5 million and when I get to 10, it's that never ending. It'll be solved when, instead of solving it up front. Because I can tell you, it's a lot easier to solve problems at 500,000 than it is when you're at 10 million. Because at 10 million, well, so-and-so won't change and this doesn't. Now we've got to rebuild this. And then it becomes impossible to do it. So doing it up front is kind of key.
I agree. One of the things I see when firms do get to that 10, 15, 20 million is they start forgetting about what they did when they were 500,000 and 1 million, and they get away from it. Right. And then and all of a sudden they're no longer profitable. And that's one of the things I talk to them about all the time is go back to the basics. Go back to that point where you were building the 500, that million, and what were the systems in place then that changed, and how do we get back to that?
And part of that is, as the owner, you start to lose touch. The more and more people are between you and the process. And that's why you have to have a good system and process up front and a way to always monitor that it is working well.
Yes.
And being able to do that. If people would like to learn more about you and your programs, how do they find you?
Yeah, super simple. Going to our website is businessaccelerator.institute. I did create a landing page just for your listeners. So
cool.
It's businessaccelerator.institute/profit answer man.
Awesome.
And so they can go to that URL and find out everything about what we do. I do work with some business owners directly, one-on-one, very limited amount, but we are building a very robust 55 plus course structure so that businesses at any level can come in and learn some of these concepts and immediately implement them. It's not just going to be theory. We're all about action. So there's going to be tools to put in place and training to get that done, group calls to be able to come to and ask questions and make sure we get it implemented. And so they'll find all that information at that website, at the landing page.
Awesome. And we'll put that in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much, Rocky, for having me. It's been fun.
Do you know how to manage the 7 parts of your business? If you're like me, I do the hats I love and I ignore the hats I don't. But you can't do that because they all work together. And the reality is, you're the most important part. It's not unusual for me to talk to clients about money mindsets, health, their home life, and kids, because all of that comes along with dealing with the employees. We wrap it all together through a financial lens that allows you to make more and work less. Because you don't need more resources, you need to be more resourceful. Remember to focus on the bottom line. Thanks for listening to The Profit Answer Man, where we believe more revenue doesn't mean more profit, and the bottom line is what really matters. If you're ready to stop living check to check, take control of your cash flow, and finally get paid what you're worth, we should talk. We work with 7- and 8-figure businesses and well-funded startups. If you're a smaller business, check out the Profit Blueprint program. It's a do-it-yourself solution that also can come with my direct guidance in the same level we give our one-on-one clients. When you're ready for results, book a discovery call. There's a link in the show notes or at profitcomesfirst.com. You'll be speaking and working directly with me. In the meantime, grab your free copy of the Profit Blueprint at profitcomesfirst.com. It's the next step to turning your business into a consistent cash flow generating machine. If you'd like to dig more into leading yourself, your company, and building the ultimate life, listen to my other podcast, Richer Soul, where we cover these topics in great depth. There's a link in the show notes. As we close out, let's repeat the mantra. Revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, and cash is king. Have an abundant and profitable week.